There is a quiet truth moving beneath your awareness right now. It is this: nothing you feel toward your special person is private, not in the way you were taught to believe. Thought is not locked inside the skull. Emotion does not end at the skin. And imagination is not a harmless pastime. What you feel, sustained and lived in, becomes a signal. And that signal does not stop at distance, silence, or separation. Your SP feels you more than you think. Not because they are conscious, trying to, but because consciousness itself is shared space. You are not sending messages outward like a radio hoping someone tunes in. You are occupying a state, and states communicate without effort. The moment you enter the feeling of being chosen, wanted, remembered, and desired, you step in a reality where that feeling is already true, and everyone involved must play their part in it. You were conditioned to believe the influence requires action, words, proof, and timing. But influence at the deepest level requires alignment. When you internally assume that you matter to them, that you are emotionally present in their inner world, that you are missed even when unspoken, something rearranges. You may not see it immediately, but you will feel it first as a calm knowing. That knowing is the bridge. It is the same bridge they walk unconsciously when a thought of you rises in them without warning. When your name feels heavy in their chest, when your energy interrupts their routine. They may not label it as you, but the sensation is unmistakable. You are there. The reason this works is not mystical fantasy. It is law. Every person you encounter is yourself pushed out, not as a copy, but as a reflection of the state you occupy regarding them. When you hold someone as distant, unavailable, unsure, or fading, they obediently express that assumption. When you hold them as connected, emotionally open, and responsive, they must conform. They do not feel compelled by force. They feel drawn by resonance. You are not invading their mind. You are sharing a frequency you both already belong to. Think about how often you have felt someone without explanation. A sudden warmth, a pull, a restlessness that had no logical source. That was not coincidence, that was attunement. And if you can feel without permission, so can they. The difference is that when you understand this, you stop chasing evidence and start embodying certainty. You stop asking, do they think about me? And begin living from, of course I am present in them. The shift is subtle but absolute. One question places you in lack. The other places you in authorship. Imagination is not pretending. It is rehearsal for reality. When you imagine your SP feeling safe with you, emotionally softened, drawn toward you, you are not daydreaming. You are selecting a version of yourself that already exists. In that version, the connection is alive. And because consciousness is singular, when you occupy that version, they encounter it as a feeling they cannot trace. They may suddenly want to check your profile, speak your name aloud, remember a detail they had forgotten. These are not accidents. These are effects. The mistake people make is waiting for confirmation before belief. But belief is what creates confirmation. The inner conversation you maintain about your SP is the relationship. Words spoken inwardly carry more weight than words exchanged outwardly. If your inner dialogue is filled with longing, doubt, and absence, that is what circulates. But if your inner dialogue assumes closeness, ease, and mutual desire, that becomes the atmosphere they breathe when they think of you. They may not say it yet. They may not act immediately. But the seed is already moving underground. Understand this clearly. Effort is the enemy. The moment you strain, you declare that it is not done. When you relax into knowing, you announce completion. You do not need to visualize harder, affirm louder, or wait longer. You need to settle into the feeling of being someone who is already felt. Imagine what it would be like if you knew, without question, that your presence lingers with them, that when they are quiet, you are louder, that when they are distracted, you are the interruption. Sit in that feeling, not as hope, but as fact. That is where power lies. Distance has never been a barrier. Time has never been a barrier. Silence has never been a barrier. Only assumption creates barriers. When you assume separation, you experience it. When you assume connection, you witness it. Your SP does not need to believe what you believe. Reality does not require consensus. It requires persistence. The state you return to again and again becomes dominant, and the dominant state externalizes. There is a reason your emotions feel intense when you think of them. Intensity is energy-seeking expression. Energy does not vanish. It transfers. When you feel deeply, you impress deeply. But emotion without direction becomes suffering. Emotion with assumption becomes creation. Instead of feeling longing, feel recognition. Instead of feeling waiting, feel arrival. Instead of feeling missing, feel presence. These are not tricks. These are choices of state. Notice how the body responds when you imagine them smiling at the thought of you, relaxing because you exist, feeling comforted by your energy. The body does not know the difference between imagination and experience, and neither does consciousness. When your body accepts it as real, consciousness agrees. And when consciousness agrees, reality follows. You are not asking them to feel you. You are allowing them to. There is a difference. Asking implies lack. Allowing implies permission already granted. The moment you stop checking for signs, signs multiply. The moment you stop needing reassurance, reassurance appears. This is not irony. This is alignment. Your SP feels you when you are calm about them, when you no longer grip the outcome, when you stop replaying old stories and start living the new one internally. They feel you when you no longer define them by past behavior, but by present assumption. People do not change because you demand it. They change because you see them differently, and being seen differently awakens different behavior. You are not separate minds trying to connect across space. You are one field experiencing itself from 2 points. When one point shifts, the entire field adjusts. That is why the smallest internal shift can create the biggest external response. A thought held with feeling is an instruction. A state lived in is a command. If you want to know how deeply they feel you, observe how deeply you allow yourself to feel chosen without evidence. The moment you can rest there, truly rest, without anxiety, without urgency, without timelines, something will move. It always does. Reality cannot resist a settled assumption. It must comply. And so you do not wait. You do not chase. You do not wonder. You become. You become the one who is felt, remembered, and emotionally present. You walk as someone who is already influencing without trying. And from that state, everything unfolds naturally, quietly, inevitably. You do not need to manage how it happens. Because the moment you try to manage the bridge, you imply that the bridge is fragile. It is not. The connection is self-sustaining once assumed. What weakens it is doubt, not distance. Doubt is simply the habit of returning to an old state after briefly touching a new one. The work is not to force belief, but to gently refuse the old story every time it appears. When the mind whispers, nothing is happening, you do not argue. You simply return to the feeling of already being emotionally acknowledged. This is not denial. This is discipline of consciousness. The inner world is the only place creation ever occurs. The outer world is merely a delayed mirror. When you accept this, impatience dissolves. You stop measuring days, messages, movements. You stop scanning for proof. And this is often the moment when proof arrives, not as a reward, but as a reflection of your release. When the need disappears, the thing appears. This is not punishment or test. It is coherence. Reality aligns with what you are, not with what you want. Your SP does not feel your anxiety. They feel your assumption. Anxiety is self-focused. Assumption is directive. When you sit quietly and feel yourself as someone who is already valued, already emotional, impactful, already significant in their inner life, that feeling has direction. It moves. It reaches. It settles. They may experience it as nostalgia, curiosity, softness, longing, or even irritation that masks desire. Feeling does not always announce itself sweetly. Sometimes it disrupts, sometimes it unsettles. But disruption is still connection. Understand this. When you imagine lovingly, you are not interfering with free will. Free will is the ability to choose states. You are choosing yours. They are responding from theirs. The harmony occurs because states seek their own confirmation. A person who is imagined as open tends to open. A person who is imagined as distant tends to distance. This is not manipulation. This is perception. And perception is the womb of behavior. You may wonder why it feels harder some days than others. That is simply the momentum of the old identity loosening. The mind resists losing familiar suffering because it mistakes familiarity for safety. But the moment you stop feeding the old story with emotional energy, it starves. You do not need to kill it. You only need to stop believing it. The new state grows effortlessly once given space. Notice how different it feels to think of your SP from calm certainty rather than emotional hunger. Hunger pulls, certainty attracts, hunger asks. Certainty allows. The universe responds to allowance, not demand. When you rest in the feeling of being known, you no longer need to be seen. And paradoxically, that is when you are seen most clearly. Your imagination is not limited to images. Feeling is the language. You do not need scenes or scripts. You need mood. The mood of being remembered. The mood of being impactful. The mood of being emotionally safe and desired. Sit in that mood as you would sit in sunlight, without agenda, without clock watching, without commentary. This is not effort, this is permission. If at any moment you catch yourself wondering whether they still care, recognize that this question does not come from truth. It comes from habit. Truth does not ask for confirmation. Truth is self-evident. When you live from truth, questions fall away. And when questions fall away, answers arrive on their own. The most powerful moments are often the quiet ones when nothing appears to be shifting externally. These are the moments where the deepest rearrangements are occurring. The soil is disturbed before the sprout breaks the surface. If you dig to check, you interrupt the process. Trust is not passive. Trust is restraint. It is the refusal to interfere with your own creation. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not missing a window. Consciousness does not operate on deadlines. It operates on states. The moment you occupy the state of being emotionally connected, time reorganizes to support it. Past misunderstandings soften. Present circumstances bend. Future interactions align. All without force. When you think of your SP, do not think from wanting to be chosen. Think from knowing you already are. There is a vast difference between imagining to get an imagining from being. One strains, the other settles. One creates noise, the other creates gravity. Gravity does not chase, it draws. You may feel moments of sudden peace for no reason. Those moments are alignment. Do not question them. Do not analyze them. Stay with them. Peace is the signal that you are no longer fighting reality, but authoring it. And when you author calmly, the characters respond naturally. Your SP feels you most when you are not trying to be felt. Because effort creates resistance. Ease creates flow. The moment you let go of needing to move them, you move them. The moment you stop waiting for a message, the impulse arises in them. The moment you stop rehearsing conversations, conversations occur. Everything begins with identity. Decide who you are in this story, not who you were. Not who you fear being, but who you choose to be now. Are you the one who is overlooked, or the one who is emotionally unforgettable? Are you the one who waits, or the one who is anticipated? Are you the one who hopes, or the one who knows? The answer to these questions is not spoken. It is lived inwardly. Live as the one who is felt deeply, quietly, undeniably, and allow the rest to arrange itself without supervision. There is a subtle mastery that emerges when you no longer react to your thoughts, but select them. Most people believe thoughts happen to them. In truth, thoughts are invitations you may accept or decline. When a thought arises that suggests absence, disinterest, or fading connection, it is not prophecy. It is residue. It is the echo of an old assumption seeking relevance. You do not need to fight it. Fighting gives it weight. Simply return to the feeling of being someone who leaves an imprint. Someone whose energy is not forgotten once encountered. Someone whose presence changes the emotional climate of a room, even when unseen. This is where inner authority is born, not in affirmations repeated mechanically, but in quiet decisions made repeatedly. The decision to identify as chosen rather than waiting. The decision to feel remembered rather than hoping. The decision to assume importance rather than seeking validation. Each decision is small, almost unnoticeable. But together they rewrite the role you occupy in the shared field of consciousness. Your SP does not experience you as you appear on the surface. They experience you as you are assumed internally. The external self is merely the mask. The internal state is the signal. When you feel secure in your own value, that security transmits as safety. When you feel complete without their response, that completeness transmits as attraction. People are drawn to what feels whole, not what feels hungry. There is no need to erase the past. The past has no authority unless you grant it one. Memory itself is fluid, reshaped by present assumption. When you occupy a new state consistently, the past reorganizes itself around it. Old conversations lose their sting. Old silences lose their meaning. Old outcomes lose their finality. The present assumption becomes the lens through which everything is interpreted. If you ever noticed how easily people treat you differently when you feel different about yourself, you have already witnessed the law in action. This is no different with your SP. They respond not to your words, but to your being. And being is silent. Being is felt. Being does not announce itself. It permeates. At times you may feel an urge to check, to reach out, to seek reassurance. Pause in those moments. Ask yourself not what you want to do, but who you are being. Would someone who knows they are deeply felt need to confirm it? Or would they move calmly, confidently, without urgency? Let your actions flow from identity, not from emotion. Emotion follows identity, not the other way around. The power of assumption is that it does not require effort once accepted. You do not wake up each day trying to be yourself. You simply are. In the same way, once you accept the identity of being emotionally significant to your SP, you no longer need to maintain it. You live from it. And living from it feels natural, not strained. Telepathy is not about sending thoughts. It is about sharing states. When two people occupy complementary states, communication occurs without language. When you feel connected, they feel connection. When you feel open, feel openness. When you feel distant, they feel distance. This is why changing yourself changes them without direct interaction. Do not underestimate the moments when you think of them gently, without longing, without pain. Those moments carry more power than hours of emotional intensity. Calm imagination impresses deeper than desperate visualization. A relaxed assumption sinks into the subconscious like water into soil. It does not splash, it absorbs. There is a reason why forcing never works. Force implies resistance. Resistance implies separation. Separation is the illusion you are dissolving. The truth is unity. And unity does not need effort to communicate. It only needs recognition. You may notice that as you settle into this knowing, your attention shifts. You become less preoccupied with their behavior and more present with your own state. This is not detachment. This is alignment. Detachment pushes away. Alignment draws in. One is numb. The other is grounded. Your worth is not measured by their response. Their response is shaped by your worth as you assume it. When you reverse this relationship internally, everything changes externally. You stop reacting to echoes and start generating sound. If silence appears, let it be silent. Silence is not absence. Silence is incubation. If delay appears, let it delay. Delay is not denial. Delay is adjustment. Reality is rearranging to match your inner declaration. Interference only slows the process. You are learning to trust the unseen movement. The same way you trust that a seed planted will grow without supervision. You do not dig it up daily. You water it by remaining in the feeling of completion. You protect it by refusing to doubt its nature. Your SP feels you when you stop trying to be impressive and start being authentic in assumption. Authenticity is not honesty of circumstance. It is honesty of state. Be honest about who you choose to be in this connection. Choose power gently. Choose certainty quietly. Choose presence fully. And remain there. Not watching, not waiting, simply being. There comes a moment when you realize that the greatest shift was never meant to be dramatic. It was meant to be natural. The mind loves fireworks, signs, sudden declarations, but consciousness prefers quiet authority. The moment you stop announcing the change internally and simply live it, you step into real power. From there, you no longer wonder if your SP feels you. You assume it the way you assume your own name. It is no longer a question. It is a given. When you reach this point, something subtle happens to your emotional rhythm. You stop swinging between hope and disappointment. You stop reading meaning into every pause. You stop assigning emotional weight to external circumstances. And this neutrality is not indifference. It is sovereignty. You are no longer at the mercy of appearances. You are anchored in cause rather than effect. The mind may still attempt to pull you back into old habits. It may replay memories or predict unfavorable outcomes. But these thoughts lose their charge because you no longer identify with them. They are clouds passing through a sky that no longer mistakes itself for weather. You remain the sky. Spacious, unmoved, certain. This is when your influence deepens. Because influence does not come from emotional volatility. It comes from emotional stability. When you are internally settled, others feel safe to move toward you. Safety is the most magnetic quality there is. It requires no performance. It requires presence. Your SP begins to experience you not as a thought they chase, but as a feeling they return to. And feelings do not obey logic. They surface when least expected. They interrupt distraction. They soften resistance. They create curiosity without explanation. This is why the most powerful moments of connection often occur when you are not thinking about connection at all. You are simply being yourself from a fulfilled state. Do not mistake calm for stagnation. Calm is fertile ground. It is the state from which everything grows effortlessly. When you are calm about your desire, you declare that it is already fulfilled internally. And the outer world has no choice but to echo that declaration. You may notice that your imagination becomes gentler, less vivid perhaps, but more convincing. You are no longer trying to see scenes. You are living in moods, the mood of mutual recognition, the mood of emotional closeness, the mood of being naturally included in the inner life. These moods are powerful because they are believable. And what is believable impresses the subconscious far more deeply than what is dramatic. Believability is the secret. The subconscious does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you accept as normal. When being felt by your SP becomes normal internally, it becomes inevitable externally. Normalcy is the strongest form of assumption. This is why repetition is not about force. It is about familiarity. You gently return to the same inner knowing until it feels ordinary, until the idea of being disconnected feels strange and unnatural. At that point, the old reality has lost its footing. It cannot sustain itself without your belief. Your SP may begin to reach out in ways that feel casual, almost accidental. Do not dismiss these moments. Casual is how alignment appears. The universe rarely announces itself. It whispers. And if you are attentive without being desperate, you will recognize the shift immediately. But even if nothing appears yet, remain unmoved. Because the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It is simply the space where rearrangement is occurring. And space is necessary for movement. If everything happened instantly, you would never learn trust. Trust is the muscle being developed here. Trust in your inner authority. Trust in your chosen state. You are not here to convince anyone. You are here to embody. Convincing is loud. Embodying is quiet. And quiet carries further than noise. When you embody the state of being deeply felt, you give others permission to feel you without resistance. Let go of the need to monitor progress. Progress is not linear. It is cumulative. Each moment you choose certainty over doubt, you add weight to the new reality. And weight bends reality toward you naturally. No struggle required. You are allowed to enjoy your life now. Fulfillment does not wait for manifestation. Fulfillment is the manifestation. When you allow yourself to feel whole before anything changes, you declare that you are the source, not the seeker. And sources are never empty. Your SP does not complete you. You complete the version of yourself that experiences them differently. From this completion, connection becomes an extension rather than a requirement. And extensions flow easily. Stay here, in this calm authority, in this gentle knowing, in this quiet confidence that what you feel inwardly is already known outwardly. This is the state that cannot fail because it does not depend on outcome. It creates outcome. And as you remain, reality will move, not because you demanded it, but because it recognized you.